permission to be, so do that, or you're good?
It's good. It's good.
Okay, right.
You may start.
All right, let me get my, and of course I froze. Now Zoom is being, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yes, Priya.
It does that sometimes when I'm on video, which is why I joined from 2 devices. So I might actually shut my video off on this and see. I will have to jump out and jump back in. Just give me a minute. Yeah? It's not letting me do anything. Ay, ay, ay. Today is not a Zoom day for me. I'm not able to jump back in on this. Can you, Catherine, can you still hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
can you reclaim host? Can you become host so that it doesn't end the meeting when I close it?
Hold on now.
And then when I jump back on, you can make me co-host or.
Okay, got it. You're
Okay.
good. Yep, you're good now.
Okay. Let's see if I can get out of this meeting first.
Are you good, Priya? Priya, are you okay?
Can you still hear me, Catherine?
Yes, absolutely.
I have to close the, so I'm going to exit from where I joined as you, and I'm going to join back as me.
Okay. Yep. Are you able to share screen, Priya? We can't hear you. You have to unmute.
Now can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So you'll have to make me co-host now. The
Yes,
one that
you are
I
co-host. You are co-host.
no, I'm co-host. The co-host. I'm co-host on the different ID. You know how I'm using two IDs. So take away co-host from there and give it to me on the cloud icon, because that's on my computer. This one is on another device.
Yes, you are co-host now.
Okay, I'm gonna try and see if I'm able to share what it says. Okay, are you able to see my screen yet?
Yes.
Perfect. Whew, thank you. All right, so let's get this started. I know I've kept you waiting for longer than I should have. I'm trying to position my camera so you can see me if I'm talking. But otherwise, we are here today to talk about worksheets. And the reason we are here to talk about worksheets is that many of us, whether we are in conventional schools or Montessori schools, wherever we are, this is something that has become part of student life a long time ago. And there are some benefits to it, and there are some reasons that people use it. But I think we want to examine what exactly worksheet does and whether it is really useful in all situations. I think that's what we want to talk about today. While I'm doing the presentation, I won't be able to see you if you nod or if you say something. So if you want to say something or if you want to answer a question or something, please unmute and just say it, because I won't be able to see you to say, yeah, go ahead or whatever. So please don't hesitate to do that. And with that, let's just get started. I wanted to start off by looking at this slide, and I want you to look at this picture creation on the right. And it's probably familiar to you. Yes? To somebody at least? What do you think it is? Anyone who wants to unmute and tell me, what do you think it is? No takers? All right, I'm going to tell you. It's a child who made herself a cell phone or an iPad. That's the screen. And I want you to notice how many things she has noticed about her cell phone or iPad that she actually created that screen, the home screen. Just that was her artwork for the day. In some ways, this is great. In some ways, it's really sad, because that means that's the input that the children are getting these days, is remembering what's the icon of Google and what's the icon of Twitter and whatever else it is. But the other thing is, look at the creativity that can come out even from something where, if the gadget is not there or if there another prescribed method of engaging is not there. So I want to talk about worksheets from this point of view, that children are really creative, and the more they are using their creativity, the better it is for them for the learning. They learn better, and you know that if you learn better, you retain it longer. So let's talk about that. So coming back to worksheets, a lot of us have used it, do use it, and we probably do think about, and even in Montessori schools, I've seen it, although we usually are not really, advocating the use of worksheets in Montessori schools, but we do see it happening. Some of the reasons that people give to use worksheets is that, oh, it encourages practice of a concept, or, oh, it does ongoing assessment. Every time a child does the worksheet on something, then I know how much the child has understood. Or, oh, to send it as homework. Very often it's to show parents. because parents are often asking, how do I know what my child is learning at school? So it's easy to send a worksheet and say, oh, look, these are the letters that he has learned, or these are the numbers, and he will show you how much he's learned when I send it home as homework, because he will do it in front of you. Sometimes teachers say, oh, it's like a record of their progress, because beginning of the year, this is how they were writing their letters or numbers, or this is how they were spelling a word. This was their sentence structure, but now look at it. And sometimes it's to engage children, because we think that we need to give them something to keep them busy. But I think the most, and I don't know, I may not have covered all of the reasons. Maybe you have other reasons. So if you have other reasons, I would like to hear that. Or you can put it in the chat and I can look at it to say, what other reasons do you think people, teachers and schools use worksheets? But one of the most popular reasons I have heard, and this is coming from very often in Montessori schools as well that start using it, their reasoning is that, oh, you know what? It helps children move to doing things abstractly. And that's where the problem lies, because abstraction is not just about doing something on pencil and paper. And I think that's where we have to start this conversation about how useful or how effective worksheets are, right? If you look at this picture where this child has done this, what we call follow-up work on angles, there is so much thought, there is so much history, and there is so much effort that's gone into it. And the child has learned the kind of angles, right angle, acute angle, obtuse angle, and probably will be able to, will be very proud of the fact that they've done it. Their hand and mind are connected. So their hand will remember how they stitched this up, how they drew this, and their mind will remember it as well. And it's something that the child can probably take out the labels and play with at home. So it's a perfectly good homework, because the child can pick up those labels and then another day just pull it out and say, oh, do I remember which one is my right angle, which one is my obtuse angle? So I think we want to say, are worksheets the only answer to all these questions, to practice, to assessment, to homework, or to show parents, or to record progress? So let's start by talking about what abstraction is not. It's one of the most misunderstood words, and which is why we commonly believe that abstraction is just being able to do something on paper. Now, doing something on paper sometimes just calls for immediate recall, or mental math, or rote memorization, or completing some tests, or being able to replicate a task. Like if you look at this particular worksheet, which tells you to trace a shape and then connect the dots, it's just giving you a way to replicate that square. It's not really telling you anything else about a square. So outside of this worksheet, if you wanted to draw a square, you might struggle as a child, because you really won't know how to do this. So even if the child completes this worksheet, I would question, do they really understand what a square is? How are they going to know how to use squares? They may be able to identify them. They may be able to maybe replicate it a little bit, but that's about it. Contrast that with what we call abstraction, when a child works with something. So this is a material that's helped see, if you can see it, this child is working with squares of different sizes, triangles of different sizes, placing them in different orientations. And so to really abstract something, abstraction is really when some concept or some work or some idea is introduced, whether it's with materials, whether it's with demonstrations or real experiences, then that particular concept the child practices independently. And that independence is really important, because no two people learn at the same pace and at the same time. So the more time we can have for the child to practice at their own pace, to find out how many times they need to repeat this to understand and make those mental calculations, the better the mental picture will be in there that they can manipulate. And that's what the next step is, to make a mental picture of something, understand it using a skill, design something or create something engaging. So see, and finally, after doing that, you start seeing the underlying principles and patterns. For example, in this arrangement that the child has done, you can see that the child is probably now very soon realizing, oh, you know what? For every square, there is a triangle that fits kind of on its base exactly. Not that they know, the child may know the name base, the child may not know the name sides and angles and whatever yet, but they're still sensorially, their hand, their eyes, their mind is exploring this idea that there is a pattern here. And they might even be seeing the gradual pattern of how the squares are increasing and decreasing in sizes. So we want the children to make these mental images that they can manipulate. If you've seen some of these cognitive or IQ tests, they'll usually have 4 or 5 figures and say, they'll have one figure and say, which one would fit in here? That's a kind of spatial abstraction. In order to do that spatial abstraction, if you've ever tried one of those tests, what you really have to do is you have to imagine that shape in your head and you have to imagine fixing this piece there. It's kind of like doing a jigsaw puzzle without having it in front of you. And to do that, you have to have a mental picture. You cannot make a mental picture of something that you have not handled, seen, explored, practiced. So real abstraction only comes from having had that time to spend and understand whatever you're working on. So again, the final stage of that abstraction, how do we know the child is abstracted, is when they are able to apply it and demonstrate the understanding in some way. Now, some people might say, oh, these 3 worksheets that you see on top, they demonstrate understanding. To an extent, yes, because, well, one is just identifying, because just helping you see different sizes of squares and learn to write the name square. The other one is just arrangement of squares that you can have fun with. And the third one is just trying to identify squares, that whole sheet full of shapes, right? But is that really the child's understanding? Is that something that is going to help the child derive the general characteristics of of a square? What is a square? How do I know if it's a square or some other shape? There are very specific geometric reasons that we call a shape a square. And that cannot be understood by completing these 3 tasks on top. However, if we used the 4th one that you see with the blue squares as a sheet of paper that the child can cut up those squares, then the child could make those shapes or those patterns that you see in the other picture, or they could make the ones that the child was making. And there are a lot of patterns to identify here. There are a lot of generalizations. Take the first picture of that square upon a square upon a square going down in size. That's how a 3-dimensional square-based pyramid is made. Now, the child may not know it when they are exploring it, but there is an impression of this work. And imagine time and again, if they keep doing it, the kind of knowledge and the kind of learning that they get about squares, about how squares can create other 3-dimensional shapes, how square patterns can vary. For example, whether you put them on the diagonals, or you want to match the sides, there's different things you can do. But all of it calls for the child to be truly engaged in exploring that idea of squares. And so we want to look at that. We want to look at more opportunities like that. Because when we talk about learning materials, we always talk about learning materials need to be appealing to the child, and often it's beautiful, it attracts the child, it's child-sized, it's made with natural materials. Those things do attract children to work with something. The quality of the material matters, because young children, especially below the age of 6, are really drawn to beautiful things. So we want to make sure that the child has that experience with the materials. And some people might say to me, yeah, of course, I can make a very beautiful worksheet, yes, there are beautiful worksheets out there, and we will talk about that, right? They need to be engaging in the sense when you say the word engagement, it means it's some way for the child to purposefully handle that material, not sit and passively learn from it. So purposefully handle is something like you can see in this picture here, where a child is pouring cup of water into the shape that is actually meant for a lake. And that experience of pouring the water where the blue is shows the child that a lake is something that is surrounded by land and an island is something that's surrounded by water. It's a concrete experience. And this concrete experience can become that picture in the mind which we are talking about. And that from this experience, the child can get the general characteristics of what is a lake and what is an island to a point where they can identify lakes and islands. And that's what we want for the child. There have been many children who, after this lessons like this, have gone back to look at the world map and said, oh, you know what? Australia is an island because it's surrounded all over by water. And it's true, it is an island. And so those are the kind of discoveries that we are helping children make when they actually engage with materials. That does not mean we have to keep them only here. There are, like I said, we always take them towards abstraction, but we always take them from a point of concrete. The other really desirable characteristic of a learning material is that it isolates a single concept. And I want you to remember this because that's one of the things we are particular about in worksheets, which can get a little bit garbled. So when we are isolating a single concept, then that's kind of, it's almost like putting a spotlight on that concept and helping the child say, oh, you know what, everything else, for example, with those blue squares you saw, everything about this material, everything about this concept is the same except the size. So now I can isolate, I don't have to get distracted by different colors or patterns or anything. I can focus on the fact that I have squares of different sizes, right? It also needs to be something that lends itself to repetition and independent use. And this is the key, regardless of what kind of classroom you have. You have a conventional classroom, you have a Montessori classroom, you have a Waldorf classroom, you have a project or play-based classroom, all of them where the children actually handle and work with the concept on their own, even if it's for short period of time. That is where true learning happens. True learning does not happen from them listening to or them seeing someone else do it. Whether it's a beautiful video, whether it's a very engaging teacher who's at the front of the class, none of those can take the place of handling something yourself. It's kind of like you don't learn to ride a bicycle by watching someone else ride it. You got to get on that cycle. There's the other characteristics that materials need to have is that they should have a sequential order, in a way, moving from simple to complex. We don't want the children to feel frustrated. There's something called, in Montessori, we call it a good struggle. There's something called a good struggle. We want the child to always have that good struggle, which is just a little bit of the challenge that they need to be able to motivate themselves to go forward, but not so challenging that they give up and say, you know what, I can't do this. That's when you get children coming and asking you, do I have to do this? Or, you know, how many do I have to do? Can I do one? Am I done? All of those things are signals to us as adults that we take it sometimes as children are bored, and we'll talk about boredom later, but it's not boredom. Sometimes it's just, you know what, this is too much for me to handle at the same time because it's not leveled and presented in a way where I can understand it. And finally, a very important factor is control of error, which is being able to self-assess your work. That's a huge confidence builder for a child. So for example, if I get a worksheet, if I'm able to check my work myself, that gives me tremendous confidence rather than I hand it over to somebody and someone else takes a red pen and marks whether one thing is right or the other thing is wrong and gives it back to me. So that control of error is a way to build into the activity something that will alert the child if something is not going the way it should be going, and so that the child can self-correct and learn through the process of trial and error without the adult or without the judgment of the adult. So let's take one concept and talk about it, right? 1 to 10. This is a very common one that we see worksheets for, is numbers, because we know that, yes, children do need to practice their numbers, but how they are practicing it is important. So if we are talking about leveling the numbers, leveling the concepts, the first thing that children, very young children, below the age of 6, even below the age of 4 sometimes, they do what is called 1:1 correspondence, which means they associate the number with a very distinct object or picture. So if you show them this arrangement of 1 with a turtle and 2 with some sort of a primate, I don't know which one it is, and 3 with a sheep, in their mind, 3 is always going to be sheep, 2 is always going to be the primate, and 1 is always going to be the turtle. And I'm talking about the child that is younger than about 4.5. Same goes for anything that visual. So you might say that the second one, where you have the dots and the numbers, is not a 1:1 correspondence, but I would argue with you, because again, the 3 dots in the same pattern is a visual that I can look at, and the next time I'm doing this, I can only look for the pattern of, oh, I had those 3. I don't have to count it, because I can look at it as a child and I can match the number 3 to it, because to me, both are images. It's kind of like how we remember words that we don't even know the meaning of. If you've learned a song in a new language, you remember those words beautifully and you have no clue what you're singing, but you're singing it, right? It's like that. So the mind makes a mental picture and just replicates it. They move from 1:1 correspondence. And this is not just in math, this is in everything. When you first introduce to a very young toddler the idea of a ball, if you've given them a red ball to show them that this is a ball, for the longest time, if you ask them to bring a ball, they will only bring that red ball, because they're still doing 1:1 correspondence. In their mind, the word ball is related to that one ball. It takes them a while to realize that, oh, any of these could be balls, whether it's yellow or green or multicolored, and bring you that. From 1:1 correspondence, we actually want to move them. And when we are talking elementary, of course, we've gone beyond this, but I'm starting at this level because this is where we tend to start feeling like we need to rely on worksheets. And I want to talk about the characteristics of a worksheet. So what you're seeing here is a loose material, as we call it, which means at the end of this arrangement of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 arranged in a line, a couple of things are going to happen. One, all of these are going to go back into a box. And when they come out again, no particular peg that or counter that is there, the wooden counter, is going to tell you whether it was with the 3 last time or whether it was with the 6 last time, because all of them are single units that you can use and place them according to numbers. So you really have to think about, oh, how many is 3 to make this arrangement? Here's a whole bunch of worksheets dedicated to that 1:1, number is to image. And as you can see, in most of them, they are 1:1 correspondence, which means I can do this once. 3, I've got 3 dots. 5, I've got 5 smileys. If I do this once, maybe the first time I will count it. The second time, I can automatically match 5 and count the smileys. I don't need to count it again. Same goes with any of the other worksheets that you see here, right? So we really want something that the children can manipulate on their own. Again, coming back, same thing here. Even though there are dots, even though there are triangles, it's a whole picture in my mind. Whereas when you're looking at the cards and counters on the left, you could see that I have to put all those counters back. Tomorrow when I take out a counter, I don't know whether the last time it was under a 10 or a 9. Also, I can vary the pattern in which I lay it out. I could lay it out as long line. I could lay it out in twos. I could try and lay it out in threes. I could lay it out in a different pattern. Imagine how engaging it is for me as a child to be able to do that than to take a worksheet that just wants me to match from one column to the other column. So that said, it doesn't mean that there's no place for worksheets. Worksheets can be useful, and I'm going to tell you how they can be useful when we reimagine them. And that's kind of my goal of this talking to you about it, is not to say that, oh, we don't use worksheets, but if there are worksheets, how we're going to use them. But before giving that worksheet, we all need to ask ourselves these questions first. Do we really need a worksheet on this subject? Or are there other interactive ways the child can practice this? And if the answer is yes, then we want to think beyond the worksheet, because we know that the worksheet is just usually a one and done. If it's a no, if you feel like no, there's nothing, there's no way, there's nothing I can give them, or there's no project that can be safely done by the child independently on this particular subject, I have to give them some sort of a worksheets, then ask yourself the following questions. If you are going to give a worksheet, who is it for? And this is a very important question. You may say that it's for the child, but very often if you ask yourself this question honestly, it's who is it for? It's usually for either the adult who's giving it or the adult at home. So it's either the adult who's giving it feels like, okay, I will feel comfortable knowing that Priya knows her numbers 1 to 10 if she can complete this worksheet. So it's for me to feel satisfied that I have done a good job of teaching 1 to 10. Or it's for that parent who's saying, I don't know what you guys do. My child comes home and tells me every day he's just sweeping the classroom. I want to know what he's doing. So it's like, you know what? It'll be so much easier if I can send this parent a worksheet that the child can complete in front of them so they understand that the child can do these things. So ask who is it for, because it shouldn't be for either of the adults. It should be for the child. Ask what purpose does it serve? Does it really engage the child in repeating the activity? Or is it one of those one and done activities which is going to satisfy the adults? And very soon what that will do is take away the motivation from the child, because a child likes to repeat things. If you leave a child with nothing to do, they don't ever do nothing. They do something, if you know what I mean. They always learn something. They will find a way. They are creative. They will take stones and spend the whole afternoon with stones, whether it's with pretending, whether it's with building something. They are not, children are not averse to activity. They are active. They are learners. So if it's not engaging them really, and if it's not serving a purpose, children may lose the motivation to do it. And then it becomes something like a chore that they're doing for you. So it's like, oh, you know what? My teacher will be happy. My mother will be happy. Let me do a worksheet. Let me complete it and give it, and then go and build my bridges with whatever I want to do. The other question to ask yourself is, how is it designed? Is it designed to encourage and show children how to create their own? Or is it always printed off a book or printed off the internet nowadays, so that it just comes out as a fresh piece of paper every day that I can hand to a child? So has it been thoughtfully created? Who created it? For what purpose? And does it really encourage the child? Does it cater to different levels of learners? And that's an important thing to ask, because with any worksheet, we have to make sure that it's not just meant for one child, because we know learning is not a one shoe fits all model. We know that all of us have in our classrooms children who learn differently, who learn at different paces, and who need different levels of engagement to really understand a concept. And if that is true, then expecting everybody to do the same worksheet at the same time which is meant at same level, is either going to be, is again catering to the averages. And that's not what we want to do. We want to cater to each learner. So it needs to be something that a child who needs a little bit more help can do it, and it needs to have a way for it to be flexible where it can work for children who have already gone beyond that. Does it lend itself to changing form? Can it be only marked upon, or can it be used in another way? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what I call conventional worksheets is the one that you would go download from any worksheet creation or generation, or go to ChatGPT and say, make me a worksheet on this concept. Those would be, usually they are one and done, which means the worksheet comes out, the child does the worksheet, it's done. It's close-ended, which means it doesn't give any scope for any extensions, any flexibility, any work. It's usually a single use, and it's usually on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And it's usually an individual work. You don't have worksheets that lend themselves to any kind of pair and group work. Whereas we need to think of, even if we have worksheets, and if you're going to give worksheets, we want to create ones that encourage creativity, that are open-ended, which means they give some flexibility, and that are reusable. Because the single-use worksheet really is not enough for everybody. Maybe for somebody it's useful. Sometimes it shouldn't be just that it is that one sheet of paper. And knowing the characteristics of elementary age children, we want it to lend itself to pair and group work, because we know that these children learn better when they learn in groups, when they learn with their peers instead of learning by themselves. So I'm going to show you some examples of worksheets that can be like this. Examples of open-ended worksheets that lend themselves to repetition, that cater to the level of the individual, that can be used with materials, that can encourage collaboration, and that can be extended with simple suggestions to choose their own starting point. Here's one. And those of you who are in a Montessori elementary classroom or even primary classroom may see that it's kind of like one of the materials we have in the classroom. But here's a worksheet that doesn't have to be static, which means it doesn't have to go home as an 8.5 by 11 sheet and come back as an 8.5 by 11. It doesn't have to be all filled in by us and say, you just match them or you just write them. It could be something that the child could add to. So in this case, you have adjectives, which are in orange, and you have nouns, which are in black. Now, if I was able to cut these up, you could also ask children to draw lines and connect them, but that would be a one and done. But if I cut this up and I put a pile of my adjectives on one side and put a pile of my nouns on the other side, I can match them in so many different ways. I can say, pretty giant, dark sun, soft caterpillar, silly butterfly. And then tomorrow I could take the same words and make it silly caterpillar, dark giant, pretty milk, whatever, and have fun with it. Because remember, in elementary, we said the children need to use their reasoning mind. Just simple matching exercises are not engaging to them anymore and don't really help them learn. What helps them learn is when they have to think for themselves. Oh, even putting something like, oh, the silly cloth, and laughing about it, giggling about it. What they're really telling you is that I know that cloth is not an animate object. It's an animate, and so it really cannot be silly because it's not living thing, whatever. Even that joy of having those things will help the child. The second thing is if you can see, there are levels to this. The first level is pairing them up with a describing word and a noun, and maybe adding some of your own. So there's a blank row where they can add it. You could make your own cards sometimes with describing words if you're at that level. You could use those describing words and draw a picture and describe it to your friends. You could write down the describing words that you find in that picture or paragraph that you see. So there are many ways to extend this concept without having to stay with just this one activity. And I did see the question in the chat about the adolescent, and we will come to that. I promise I will answer all questions. Worksheets can also be created to incorporate everyday objects. So they don't have to be, nobody has to go look on the internet to find, oh my God, I have to find a new one. Just simple things that are hanging in your classroom. There's a clock, there's a calendar. There are so many activities that can be done. So let's look at this one. If I have a calendar on my wall or wherever I keep a calendar in my classroom, I can ask questions like, how many Sundays do you have in this month? Is it going to be the same in every month? Probably not, right? I could say color them in, and you don't even have to put the color red. I've just put it there just to show you how those kind of commands could be. Then take something like this. If you are at 3 and you move 3 steps towards the right, then take 2 steps down. What is the number you would come at? Now, this is an activity that can work with any calendar, right? Any month's calendar. It's not like it's tied to this July calendar or June calendar. You could start from a different number and do the same thing. So I started this time, my command was to say, oh, I was supposed to start at 3 and go to this number, and what is the day on this date? But I could start from 10 and do the same thing, go 3 steps to the right, 2 steps down, and say, oh, now I'm on 27th, and that's a Friday. So again, it lends itself to a lot of repetition. It lends itself flexibility, and it's something that is easy to create. Now, this is the kind of homework that children could do at home. You don't need to print up anything for them. Say, hey, do you have a calendar? These are the things. Try these things out. Sometimes, classrooms, I'm again coming back to 1 to 10 because I want to keep to a concept just to show you the differences. So these are, again, counters, and a lot of schools they use themes and say, oh, you know what, but we are doing a fish theme and we still want the children to engage with numbers 1 to 10. And for that reason, they bring in different worksheets there's a different worksheet for Christmas, there's a different worksheet for spring, there's a different worksheet for summer, whatever. So there's no reason that you couldn't have the variety, but still keep the purpose intact. So if the purpose is for the child, me, to count how many and be able to reason out and say, oh, this is how many I need to put under this number 3 or number 4, it doesn't matter whether it looks like a spider this month and it looks like a button the next month. That doesn't matter. So the variety can be created, keeping purpose intact. And then worksheets don't have to be intact sheets. They don't have to go. We have this concept that a worksheet needs to go home and come back as a full sheet. What if the worksheet was like a template that you could cut out of? So here's one that I actually found, which is a good worksheet because it's classifying materials, living and non-living, that the child can use to cut out from the second sheet and place on this. Now, the original instructions say you need to glue them on. I would say, why glue them on? Because, you could just place them there, and then that gives the child an opportunity to find some of the pictures of their own or draw their own pictures of these living and non-living things. Again, extending it beyond just the one task that is given. And worksheets can sometimes inspire, when we talk about worksheets, we have something called suggestion cards. They can inspire independent work. So if I gave a child a suggestion card, carefully water and soften the soil around a weed, pull it out gently with roots intact, use the small movable alphabet or strips of paper to name the parts. And then there are the options. You can draw this in your notebook, or you can make a 3D model with clay, or make a booklet of the parts. All of these are options. Now look at how many things that the child has how many skills they've used, how much of their intelligence, how much of their knowledge they have used to be able to create this. Because now they have learned about, oh, this is what I have to do if I have to be careful with a plant. I need to soak the ground. I need to wait for 5 minutes. Somebody may pour water on the weed, not even wait and try to pull it out, and no root will come out. It's just the stem that'll come out. Say, okay, I have to wait for about 5 minutes before the water goes. There is so much learning in just doing this that it gives you way more than if I had given them a worksheet on which I had drawn for them a picture of a plant and given them the names on the side and said, match it to which part of the plant it is. So a lot of, again, in our Montessori elementary classrooms, we really don't use worksheets usually. We use what is called follow-up works. And this is what a variety of follow-up work can look like. Whether it's inspired by the triangles and the shapes, the child is learning so many things about, you don't even realize that they're learning about area by just creating this weird robot with different shapes. Or by recreating a material, can you imagine the thought that the child has to put in to be able to recreate the flat bead frame? And as he was making it, I can tell you, he also had a reason for why he chose 3 different colors. He said, I couldn't find enough beads of the same color. So his solution was, I can keep one family, like units can be one color, tens can be one color. Simple family can be one color, thousands family can be one color, and millions families can be one color. That was a lot of thinking. That requires that the child know what it is to have those different levels, to have those different place values, and to know that he does not have the number of beads needed to make these 9 rows. Yeah. With the compound words, you see a rainbow. That's another beautiful idea where the child made it themselves and they had fun with it, because when you flip it, you can make a nonsense word which doesn't even exist. Or you have sentence strips. So instead of having write this sentence or copy this sentence, for them to have symbols to say, oh, this, I have to make a sentence which starts with an article, noun, verb, adverb, preposition, adjective, and noun. That's fun because I can make my own sentences. I will never tire as a child doing this kind of non-worksheet follow-ups, right? So as much as possible, we want to do that. So what I would like for us to do is just let's think out of the box. Let's do this for ourselves whenever we can. Try it out. Pick a concept. Create an open-ended opportunity for practicing the concept, even if it is a worksheet. Create a worksheet you would enjoy working on, something that adheres to these principles that we talked about, that it can be independently used, that can be repeated, that can be extended, that is flexible, and all of that. One that has some extensions built in, and then share it with your colleagues, your peers. Get some reviews. Ask somebody to give you. Put that effort in, have fun. But the point of this is that then when we do that, instead of just going and generating it from, and I know that I'm talking about giving you more work, but I'm just saying that's if you want to make worksheets. Because if you're happy to give the children choice to practice that concept on their own, they have a ton of ideas that they will use on their own. But if you feel that they need something, you can give them, put the effort to put that purpose into that work, right? So let it be mindful. Let's be purposeful about how we engage children, not just to keep them busy. And here's a reason that I wanted to share this with you. If you look at this picture, this is a perfect animal, and I think I've shared it with some of you who may have already seen it if you attended one of my other sessions on other things. Created, can you imagine the amount of research, the amount of writing, the amount of conversation, the amount of effort that went into creating this perfect animal, who, by the way, I guess was the idea was that this was the animal that had the best chance of whatever, fastest legs, best tail, best teeth to be a predator, whatever. And there's reasons there. Obviously, you cannot read it because it's written in all kinds of arrows and messy ways. But this is what we want create children to do. This is what we want them to think about. We want them to think about this whole idea of, okay, predators need the kind of teeth that can tear through flesh. Which animal has that and does that effectively? So then would it be useful to have an animal that has that quality, and so on and so forth. And I want to share this with you. This is a quote I recently came across from a very current, very sought after person, whatever. Anyway, so it says, for the vast majority of human history, boredom, and in this case, boredom refers to the mind being free of assigned tasks and allowed to wander. Boredom was not a problem to be solved. It was a cognitive state that forced the brain into a mode we now call the default mode network, a kind of mental background processing where you consolidate memories, develop empathy by imagining other people's lives, generate creative ideas, and build a coherent sense of self. When you stare out the window, waited for the bus, or sat quietly after dinner, your brain was doing some of its most important work. Boredom was, in a very real sense, the engine of the inner life. And you will never believe who said this. If you want to take a guess, I will let you take a guess, and I will ask you when I'm coming for the questions. So with that, I want to leave you. Thank you so much for spending your time. I want us to think about, at least entertain the idea of how can we put more thought and meaning and purpose into what we are asking children to do to show us what they have learned. And if you allow them to, you will see a variety like you're seeing on the screen that they will, they will blow your mind. So with that, I will stop and I will say, what questions do you have? Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Otherwise, I will go to, let me just get my view back.
Yeah, Priya, hello, I'm Sonali here.
Yeah.
So one question that I have is, yes, the session, the types of worksheets that we ideally should be given actually is like that. But the questions generally we get is that how do we also educate the parents who will understand, how to kind of support the children for these kind of work at home in our absence, in the teacher's absence. Some parents we always find very eager and they are cooperative, but some are like they actually want the children to be engaged at home. That is the purpose of the worksheet. So
right.
A challenge is there.
No, it is a challenge. I understand that. And that's exactly why I said we need to ask ourselves, are we sending this worksheet to entertain the adult?
Right.
Right? And if we are, at least let's be honest with ourselves for that. It's like I'm sending this so that Mrs. Sharma doesn't come and shout at me every day. Right? But
Yes.
if we are fooling ourselves as educators, I'm just speaking as an educator. If we are fooling ourselves as educators and thinking, oh, this worksheet is really useful and this is something that's going to help this child remember this concept, it's not. Correct?
Yes.
But yes. I would encourage you, like we did just now. I mean, we have discussed this. Of course, we haven't had time to really sit down and discuss this. But doing more when you're doing parent education, do more of these kind of topics. Give them. If I was there in person with all of you, I would have actually given you some worksheets to work on. It's a longer workshop that I do on worksheets. We actually create worksheets. Do things like that with your parents. Because when they see the flip, when they see how the child can be engaged and how a demonstration of learning does not have to be that one worksheet, they will also get on board. Two, you can send things that the children can still do independently, like we suggested with suggestion cards, which parents don't have to sit with. That's a task between teacher and child, and say, hey, this is what I want you to do at home. I want you to go find leaves of different kinds, pick them up, put them in a basket, dry them, and bring them to school. That's then you can talk about venation and whatever. Then the next suggestion card that goes home can say, now classify them based on their venation. Are they parallelly veined? Are they reticulate venation? Now classify them according to their shape. So those things can be done as an ongoing engagement with that concept without having to send them a one and done thing. You know what I mean?
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
yes.
Parents is what I would say.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And there was a question about what about worksheets for adolescent learners? So again, the same thing. Adolescent learners, again, what is it that we know about adolescent learners? They are on that verge of adulthood, right? They want to fit in. They're already thinking that I'm soon going to be an adult and I need to fit into that environment. So they really are motivated and engaged if they are given tasks that are adult-like. So doing real projects, which is why we in Montessori schools, at least, we like to give them what we call them children of the earth, and we like to give them real tasks. So it's a real task of finding out how many meters of fence we have to buy to be able to fence off this part of the ground for the chickens who we are going to take care of. It's real tasks. It's a small community that builds. Now, that's not always possible. Not even in all Montessori schools are they have the space or the way to do it. But as much as possible, we need to be giving students projects. So project-based is what works for the adolescent, whether it's a project, even if it's a school where the project is generated by the teachers. Ideally, the students should have a say in what kind of project they're doing. And as part of that project, writing down something or taking some notations or learning to keep track of scientific scientific way of writing, all of those become part of it. They don't have to be a generated worksheet. They could be creating it themselves. So to give you an example, let's say that they're doing something like they're learning how to test what are the chemicals present in the water in the pond down the road, whatever it is, that water testing kit. For them to be recording it, yes, we need to give them a way to record it. But do we need to print up that paper and give it to them? Or can we educate them on how do you keep a record of something that you are finding out? How do you start with your hypothesis? How do you start with your materials? What are the things you're going to learn? How often are you going to do it? How much are you going to write down? What are you seeing? How long are you going to observe this phenomenon? All of those things are the scientific recording that we want them to keep. That is how scientists keep records. Scientists don't get given, when they walk into a lab to do research, they're not given a template and said, follow this. They're told, this is your experiment. These are the things you're going to look into. Keep track of what's going to happen and write it down. So we could do that. But again, even if you have to give them a worksheet, let there be spaces there for the children to individualize and make it their own. That's what I would say. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Priya. But
Yeah.
I would like to ask about because our school we need to carry standardized tests.
Right.
So, coming to the test, usually coming to the timeline of the test, we give like repetitive worksheet
Yeah.
that
But
is it
that's for a
okay?
purpose, right? That's like, okay,
Yes.
that's kind of like, okay, I need you to get comfortable with the language of a worksheet. So that's almost like a practice. right? We are talking about using worksheets as a way of learning all through the year. You're talking about using the worksheets to get them specifically ready for something. So especially with adolescents, there's no harm in doing that with the standardized tests. I know even when children start, the school I was in, even from 5th grade onwards, we had to give standardized tests. And one of the things we had to give children was how to fill in those. We have those multiple bubble filling kind of tests. And that was a skill they needed to learn. They needed to learn not to go beyond that bubble, or they needed to learn those things. But when it's given like that, and when it's explained to the children that, hey, you know what, for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to, every Thursday and Friday, I'm going to give you a worksheet so that you get used to it, and then discuss it. So then if the purpose is for us to help the children understand that worksheet and learn how to work with it, then let's bring it back and discuss it, so that they would come back with it and say, okay, this is what I answered, and saying, okay, why do you think this was the right answer? Turn it into a kind of discussion seminar with them, so that they all learn that this was what the worksheet was asking them to do. Maybe they misunderstood it. Let's talk about what was the misunderstanding. So again, we are skilling them to take on a real task. Test is a real task. They're going to have tests till they graduate from college, probably. But at least they're understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And it's not just based on their answers and based on, what they have brought back. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Rosie is asking, can we give worksheets to young learners with GDD? I don't know what GDD is. Can you explain to me what that is? It may be a term that I'm not used to. Okay. I have not heard of that acronym. So, can we give worksheets? Again, that's exactly the point of a worksheet. Who is it for? Have we really put the thought into that worksheet to think that it will apply, it can be used with a child who has developmental delays, or has an accelerated learning pattern? So that is why when we say that we are going to create the worksheets, when we are as educators going to look into its effectiveness, its purpose, then we are going to be able to cater it to any child. So if you want this child who's probably not yet mastered, let's say, reading, maybe language is an issue, maybe reading is an issue for the child, whatever it is, then you can, as an educator, create something that they can use as well. That makes sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
Priya, thank you so much.
Yeah. Any other questions? Because I cannot even see how many people are still there. So is it just you and me, Catherine? Oh no, there are.
We have 18 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So anyone have any other questions? Thank you, Madhura. So yeah, please, if you have some ideas, some topics that you want us to address, please keep sending it to us. So what is it about great stories? Is there something you particularly want to talk about with the elementary great stories? Or is it just a refresher of great stories? What is it that you're looking for, Madhura?
It's elementary great stories only, ma'am.
Yeah, elementary great stories. But is it, what are you looking for in terms of a webinar for that? Are you looking for a discussion about the great stories, or are you actually looking for how to tell the great stories? What is it? What about the great stories? Or just
That's a refreshing one, ma'am, because we all love your sessions, and you are the one who took class for us in elementary. The great stories.
So you just want to
We
hear
all-
the story again from
Yes,
Grandma?
yes, ma'am.
All right,
Yes,
fine.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
It will be Grandma Priya.
And also,
Grandma
ma'am,
Priya will tell you a story, don't worry.
and also to take it further, like after telling the great stories, how
Yeah.
we can take it further with the children,
All right.
open the doors to explore all that things.
Great. Yeah. So we'll keep that in mind. So keep sending those. I know that you have Catherine's email because she sent you the webinar details. Just send it and say, hey, we would love to have more sessions on this topic or that topic, and let's make it happen. Yeah.
And who is the person who told this quote about the boredom, ma'am? Like, I'm not able to get.
You want to take a guess? I'll let you guess.
Like, I just checked some of the quotes for boredom, but I'm not able to shortlist who has been,
Well,
who spoke
was
about
it
that.
a relevant quote or not? That boredom, what we used to call boredom, at least I used to call boredom as child, was the most creative time. I came up with the most creative ideas. This was actually from an AI answer. If you've heard of Claude, that was Claude's answer when Claude was asked that what is the single most. Let me tell you what the question was. One of my friends did this for some reason, and the question he asked Claude was, what is the single most destructive thing that humans have done to themselves in the last, decades or so? And Claude's answer was that what they have done is stopped being able to. Claude talked about how the whole technology has overtaken, and people have got so tied to gadgets that they have lost this ability to be creative and think creatively. So it was very interesting that this was an answer from AI.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, how to know about your update about your webinars, ma'am, when you will be conducting?
I think Catherine and I will keep you updated. Just however you get your emails from Catherine, it will be the same way.
Yes. So all of you have my email. I'm going to type it in the chat. And please complete the feedback form to get your CPD certificate. Yeah. I am so sorry. I'm at the airport.
You're still at the airport. Sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, I see Shiva in the background. She right behind you.
And we have some friends here.
Yeah, that's what I said. I saw Shiva. Hi, Shiva.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
You didn't notify me of the change of date.
What? Catherine is sending emails to everybody. You know the time.
I didn't get the
If you didn't register, you wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Are we done for now? Were there any other questions? I see some people are still here. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hang on.
Somebody lost a tag. What happened? Is that somebody's tag? Is that your tag? There at the door. Is that your tag? Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time. I think we are. Are we closing up now?
Okay. Yeah. So remember, everyone, please complete the form. Yeah, it's on the chat. Otherwise, you don't get your CPD certificate. I do apologize again for the hiccup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize too, but I hopefully finished on time.
Yes, you did. You did. Wonderful. Thank you so
All right.
much for turning up. And you will be able to watch the replay when I get it downloaded. Yeah. And and please send us the topics that you want to learn more about, and I will communicate with Priya. And those of you who are interested in the professional development training, yeah, just send me an email and I'll send you more information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Priya. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Catherine.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Take care.